It's the 20th of July 2011, and we're on the fifth night on the Digha Nikaya talks. And we come to Digha Nikaya Sutta number 6, Mahali Sutta, about heavenly sights, soul and body. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying at Vesali, at the Gable Hall in the great forest, and at that time a large number of Brahmin emissaries from Kosala and Magadha were staying at Vesali on some business. And they heard say, the ascetic Gotama, son of the Sakyans, who has gone forth from the Sakyan clan, is staying at Vesali, at the Gable Hall in the great forest. And concerning that blessed Lord, a good report has been spread about. This blessed Lord is an Arahant, Sammasambuddha, perfected in knowledge and conduct, a well-farer, knower of the worlds, unequal trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, a Buddha, a blessed Lord. He proclaims this world with its gods, Maras and Brahmas, the world of ascetics and Brahmins, with its princes and people, having come to know it by his own knowledge. He teaches a Dhamma that is lovely in its beginning, lovely in its middle, and lovely in its ending, in the spirit and in the letter, and he displays the fully perfected, thoroughly purified, holy life. And indeed, it is good to see such arahants. And so these Brahmin emissaries from Kosala and Magadha went to the great forest, to the Gable Hall. At that time, the Venerable Nagita was the Lord's personal attendant. So they approached the Venerable Nagita and said, Reverend Nagita, where is Reverend Gotama now staying? We would like to see him. Friends, it is not the right time to see the Lord. He is in solitary meditation. But the Brahmins just sat down to one side and said, when we have seen the Lord Gotama, we will go. Just then, Othada, the Lichavi, came to the Gable Hall with a large company, saluted the Venerable Nagita and stood aside, saying, where is the blessed Lord staying, the Arahant Sammasambuddha? We would like to see him, Mahali. Then the Venerable Nagita said to this Othada, Mahali, it is not the right time to see the Lord. He is in solitary meditation. But Othada just sat down to one side and said, when I have seen the blessed Lord, the Arahant, fully enlightened Buddha, I will go. Stop here for a moment. So here these emissaries, they are people sent on a special mission. For example, to spy or anything. And this Othada, the Lichavi, the Venerable Nagita calls him Mahali, that is the family name, surname. In India, the clan is very important, the caste. So, people like to know who your caste is, your family name is, and then they can tell what caste you belong to. Then the novice Siha came to the Venerable Nagita, stood aside and said, Venerable Kassapa, these many Brahmin emissaries from Kosala and Magadha have come here to see the Lord. And Othada, the Lichavi too, has come with a large company to see the Lord. It would be well, Venerable Kassapa, to allow these people to see him. Stop here for a moment. So you see, Nagita is addressed as Venerable Kassapa. That must be his clan name. And he said, well then, Siha, you announce them to the Lord. Yes, Venerable Sir, said Siha. Then he went to the Lord, saluted him, stood aside and said, Lord, these Brahmin emissaries from Kosala and Magadha have come here to see the Lord. And Othada, the Lichavi, likewise with a large company. It would be well if the Lord were to let these people see him. And the Buddha said, then Siha, prepare a seat in the shade of this dwelling. Yes, Lord, said Siha, and did so. Then the Lord came out of his dwelling place and sat down on the prepared seat. The Brahmins approached the Lord. Having exchanged courtesies with him, they sat down to one side. But Othada did obeisance to the Lord, and then sat down to one side, saying, Lord, not long ago, Sunnakata, the Lichavi, came to me and said, soon I shall have been a follower of the Lord for 3 years. I have seen heavenly sights, pleasant, delightful, enticing, but I have not heard any heavenly sounds that were pleasant, delightful, enticing. Lord, are there such heavenly sounds which Sunnakata cannot hear, or are there not? And the Buddha said, there are such sounds, Mahali. Then Lord, what is the reason, what is the cause, why Sunakata cannot hear them? And the Buddha said, Mahali, in one case a monk facing east goes into one-sided samadhi and sees heavenly sights, pleasant, delightful, enticing, but does not hear heavenly sounds. By means of this one-sided samadhi, he sees heavenly sights, but does not hear heavenly sounds. Why is this? Because this samadhi only leads to the seeing of heavenly sights, but not to the hearing of heavenly sounds. Again, a monk facing south, west, north goes into a one-sided samadhi and facing upwards, downwards, or across sees heavenly sights in that direction, but does not hear heavenly sounds. Why is this? Because this samadhi only leads to the seeing of heavenly sights, but not to the hearing of heavenly sounds. In another case, Mahali, a monk facing east hears heavenly sounds, but does not see heavenly sights. Again, a monk facing south, west, north, facing upwards, downwards, or across, hears heavenly sounds, but does not see heavenly sights. In another case, Mahali, a monk facing east goes into two-sided samadhi, and both sees heavenly sights, pleasant, delightful, enticing, and hears heavenly sounds. Why is this? Because this two-sided samadhi leads to both the seeing of heavenly sights and the hearing of heavenly sounds. Again, a monk facing south, west, north, facing upwards, downwards, or across, sees heavenly sights and hears heavenly sounds. And that is the reason why Sunakata comes to see heavenly sights, but not to hear heavenly sounds. Stop here for a moment. There is a sutta, I forgot where the Buddha said, it's probably either Anguttara Nikaya or Sangyutta Nikaya, where the Buddha said when he was practicing meditation, there was a stage where he could see heavenly beings, but not clearly. Not clearly. Then he strove harder and he developed more samadhi. Then he could see them more clearly. And then he continued, and then after that he can talk with them and all that. So this, when your samadhi is not sufficient, you develop certain psychic powers, but not others. So he has, the meditator has to keep on practicing, develop more samadhi and more of these psychic powers arise. Well, Lord, is it for the realization of such samadhi states that monks lead the holy life under the Blessed Lord? No, Mahali, there are other things higher and more perfect than these, for the sake of which monks lead the holy life under me. What are they, Lord? Mahali, in one case, a monk having abandoned 3 fetters becomes a stream winner, a sotapanna, not liable to states of woe, firmly set on the path to enlightenment. Again, a monk who has abandoned the 3 fetters and has reduced his greed, hatred and delusion becomes a sakadagamin, once returner, who having returned to this world once more will make an end of suffering. Again, a monk who has abandoned the 5 lower fetters makes a spontaneous rebirth in the highest sphere, and without returning from that world gains enlightenment, that is anagamin. Again, a monk through the extinction of the asavas reaches in this very life the uncorrupted deliverance by mind, the deliverance by wisdom, which he has realized by his own insight. That is another thing higher and more perfect than these, for the sake of which monks lead the holy life under me. Stop here for a moment. So you see here very clearly, this Mahali is asking whether this states of samadhi, which gives rise to psychic powers, are there any things higher? And the Buddha said, yes. And what is higher are these Aryan stages. Aryan stages are always higher than any type of samadhi or any type of psychic powers. Because these psychic powers, these samadhis, you can lose them. But once you attain these Aryan stages, Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin, Arahanthood, it is permanent. You never lose them. And besides, you are forever unable to take rebirth in the woeful planes, to become a ghost, animal, or fall into hell. That being so, Once you become an Arya, you are no more scared of samsara. No more scared of dying and being reborn, because once you're an Arya, you can only be reborn as a human being or as a Deva or Devi. And even if you come back as a human being, you will have a very, very good life, because an Aryan has a great merit. The highest merit a person can attain is to become an Arahant. And lower than that is the Anagamin, and lower than that Sakadagamin, lower than that is Sotapanna. So all these Aryan stages are very meritorious, and the person is highly blessed by having these Aryan stages. So we should strive for these Aryan stages, not so much the states of Samadhi. There are some people, they don't understand. They keep striving for jhana or jnana and all that. They don't understand that the easier way is just to listen to the suttas, study the Nikayas again and again. When you understand, you attain right view. Once you attain right view, you have entered the stream, attained the first path. And the first path will turn into Sotapanna, first fruit, within a period before you die. Before the person dies, the path will definitely turn into fruit. And then you are secure. Lord, is there a path, is there a method for the realization of these things? That means these Aryan stages. There is a path, Mahali, there is a method. And what, Lord, is this path? What is this method? And the Buddha said, it is the Noble Eightfold Path, namely right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is the path. This is the way to the realization of these things. Stop here for a moment. So you see, the Buddha only taught one path, that is the Noble Eightfold Path. And that is the way to liberation, the way to become an Arya. And there is no other path. Sometimes people say Satipatthana is the only way. Satipatthana is not the only way. Satipatthana is just part of the Noble Eightfold Path. So sometimes also certain books say the Buddha taught 84,000 Dharma doors. The Buddha never taught 84,000 Dharma doors, only taught one Dharma door. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. If you think the Buddha taught 84,000 Dharma doors, and then you practice all kinds of rubbish, and you will never attain liberation. Once, Mahali, I was staying at Kosambi in the Gosita Park, and two wanderers, Mandisa and Jaliya, the pupil of the wooden bowl ascetic, came to me, exchanged courtesies with me, and sat down to one side. Then they said, how is it, friend Gautama? Is the soul the same as the body? Or is the soul one thing and the body another? And the Buddha said, well now friends, you listen, pay proper attention and I will explain. Yes friend, they said. And I went on. Friends, a Tathagata arises in the world, an Arahant Sammasambuddha, endowed with wisdom and conduct, well-farer, knower of the worlds, incomparable trainer of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened and blessed. He, having realized it by his own super-knowledge, proclaims this world with its devas, maras and brahmas, its princes and people. He preaches the Dhamma, which is lovely in its beginning, lovely in its middle, lovely in its ending, in the spirit and in the letter, and displays the fully perfected and purified holy life. A disciple goes forth and practices the moralities, etc. On account of his morality, he sees no danger anywhere. He experiences in himself the blameless bliss that comes from maintaining this Aryan morality. In this way, he is perfected in morality. And then subsequently, he practices the other factors under charana, the practice of the holy life or the conduct of the holy life. And then he gets rid of the 5 hindrances. It is as if he were freed from death, from sickness, from bonds, from slavery, from the perils of the desert. Then, being thus detached from sense desires, detached from unwholesome states, he enters and remains in the first jhana, and so suffuses, drenches, fills and irradiates his body, that there is no spot in his entire body that is untouched by this delight and joy born of detachment. Now, of one who thus knows and thus sees, is it proper to say the soul is the same as the body, or the soul is different from the body? It is not, friend. But I thus know and see, and I do not say that the soul is either the same or different from the body. And similarly, for the second jhana, third and fourth jhana, the mind bends and tends towards knowledge and vision. Now, of one who thus knows and thus sees, is it proper to say the soul is the same as the body, or the soul is different from the body? It is not, friend. And he knows there is nothing further here. Now, of one who thus knows and thus sees, is it proper to say the soul is the same as the body, or the soul is different from the body? It is not, friend. But I thus know and see, and I do not say that the soul is either the same or different from the body. Thus the Lord spoke, and Uttada the Lichavi rejoiced at his words. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha said, these external ascetics asked him this question, whether the soul is the same as the body or not. And instead of answering the question, which is not worth answering, the Buddha explained how to practice the holy life, or the practice of the holy life, the factors of charana, and then that results in vijja, the knowledges, and the psychic powers, etc. And finally, that person on the holy path attains enlightenment. So a person who knows and sees, he does not say whether the soul is the same or the body or the soul is different. He just knows. And this, what these external ascetics are saying is just a view, just an opinion. And the view, the opinion, or any opinion is not important at all. What is important is you practice the holy path and you know and see for yourself. A lot of people, they don't want to practice, they ask a lot of questions. No need to ask all these questions, you just practice and you will know. So the next sutta, Jaliya Sutta, is quite the same. Sutta Digha Nikaya, Sutta number 7, about Jaliya. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying at Kosambi in the Gosita Park, and two wanderers, Mandisa and Jaliya, the pupil of the wooden bowl ascetic, came to him, exchanged courtesies with him and sat down to one side. And then they asked him this question, and the Buddha, instead of answering them as before, the Buddha described charana and vijja, and the practice of the holy life and the results of the holy life, resulting finally in enlightenment. And the Buddha said, person who knows and sees, he is not bothered to answer those questions. Thus the Lord spoke, and the two wanderers rejoiced at his words.